I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Weedle. Weedle is our first example of a theme which will become familiar as this series goes on: matching pairs of Pokemon. Sometimes they'll just be thematically linked, like Caterpie and Weedle, pairs of two fossil Pokemon, or Lunatone and Solrock. Other times they'll be more subtle, like Seviper and Zangoose. And sometimes they'll be so similar you wonder why they're even two Pokemon at all, like Plusle and Minun. For now though, let's look at Weedle. Weedle is caught early on, like Caterpie, and evolves into Kakuna at level 7 and Beedrill at level 10 in much the same way. While I was very aware of the caterpillar life cycle as a child, through chrysalis and into butterfly, I never fully understood why a caterpillar turned into a bee. It turns out that a little more familiarity with wasps and hornets would have taken me a long way. Weedle actually very closely resembles the larvae of many species of wasps and hornets. Japanese children love insects, so this knowledge would not have been so obscure to them. And while butterflies are a common sight worldwide, big old hornets are a staple of the Japanese countryside. Even Kakuna is actually a fairly accurate interpretation of the pupal stage of some species of bee. It turns out that, as I said last week, Satoshi Tajiri just really likes bugs. Some confusion is caused by the name. While the Japanese name Beedrill is a straightforward combination of bee and needle, which tells you straight away that this is a bee larva, the English translation switches the B for a W, which implies a worm or a weevil, which are all completely different insects. In the games themselves, Weedle was slightly more useful than Caterpie, as Poison Sting can do a little more than Tackle can. On the other hand, Weedle's big red nose and bubbly body makes for a brilliantly goofy design. As a young child, my friends and I loved Weedle as a joke Pokemon. The idea of treating this silly little bug as an incredibly powerful god-tier entity amused us. Later, that same role as punchline Pokemon moved to Bidoof. Pretty soon, Weedle evolves into Kakuna. Kakuna has a much cooler design than Metapod. While Metapod looks pretty silly, Kakuna looks like a scary space alien that would menace the Fantastic Four or Captain Picard. James J. Moyles got in touch with the show, and he clearly agrees. He says, "I recall feeling a sense of dread watching the anime and seeing the hordes of Kakuna descend from the treetops and evolve into that swarm of Beedrill. The Pokemon world is scary." Overall though, Kakuna isn't much more exciting than Metapod, and we all spend those 3 agonizing levels counting down to getting Beedrill. The name Kakuna, or in Japanese literally just cocoon, might cause some confusion because in Western parlance, we pretty exclusively use cocoon to describe butterflies and moths' chrysalis stage, and rarely to describe the pupal stage of other bugs like bees and wasps. Soon enough though, we're on to the main event. There's no mistaking what Beedrill is, other than getting into the specifics of bees, wasps and hornets. His size and fearsomeness puts me in the mind of hornets specifically. Here in Japan, in the summer months in the countryside, hornets as big as my nose are a real and present danger. My first encounter with one was on a stroll through some farmlands in Koga, one of the original birthplaces of the ninja. I spotted the hornet on the floor and began to approach, crouching low and taking photos. I was about to lie down on the floor and take a selfie when, in a rare instance in my life, the sensible part of my brain kicked in and pointed out to me that this was a good way to get myself killed. I left the bug alone and went on with my day. I've had a few encounters since, one time even having one land on me while I was working on a farm in Gifu, and let me tell you, they are always terrifying. Especially compared to Viridian Forest neighbour Butterfree, Beedrill is no less terrifying. It has 3 big stingers and a resting battle face. Pokedex entries talk about high speeds and powerful stingers. My favourite comes from Ruby and Sapphire. Beedrill is extremely territorial. No one should ever approach its nest. this is for their own safety. If angered, they will attack in a furious swarm. Yeah, Beedrill is a badass. It looks cool, it's pretty handy in a fight. The Japanese name is literally Spiru, or spear. You don't mess with Beedrill. I couldn't tell you how effective Beedrill really is on the competitive metagame. It is a bug and poison type after all, so there are some pretty obvious weaknesses. But if we let ourselves get caught up in the fiction, Beedrill is a cool Pokemon to have on a tough team. Jonathan Cromie, this show's composer, clearly agrees. He got in touch to say, Beedrill is pretty good. A nice bipedal bee warrior. Then we got Mega Beedrill because somebody decided that Beedrill needed to look less endearingly chubby and more like something out of Gurren Lagann. Oh yeah, Mega Beedrill. Mega Beedrill feels almost like a reimagining of Beedrill if it had been designed as part of a later generation. It has a more complex design and more exaggerated stingers, but it's still very obviously a Beedrill. I kind of like it all said. Overall, I've got a lot of time for Beedrill, even the weird sprite with no stripe from Pokemon Red and Blue, which is somehow more off-model than the one from Green. And I've got a certain silly affection for Weedle. They're good bugs, and 20 years later they've taught me some biology about bees and wasps. Music for Luke Loves Pokemon was created by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. If you're interested and you enjoy the show, please do give us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, follow on Twitter at LukeLovesPKMN, and share the podcast with fellow Pokemon fans. If you have anything to say about the next Pokemon, Pidgey and Rattata, or if there's any other Pokemon you love, let me know all about it. I'm on Twitter and Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN, and you can email the show at lukelovespkmn@gmail.com. I love Weedle, and remember, I love you too.